Hello everyone, this is a video about using video to study designing as it happens. We'll talk about why do we use video, how did we come to use video, and what is the methodological framework for using video to study designing. We'll also talk about a week-long workshop we did in Luleå, the Luleå Experiment, around the use of video interaction methodology.
Let's start with why to use video. Consider that as people design, they straddle three time zones: the past, the present, or the now, and the future. They create artifacts and documents that reflect the past, prepare plans that project into the future, and act in the now. Video is a tool to study the now. As the now changes constantly, video provides a more permanent record of the interactions as they happen in the now, with the context preserved as well as the content. The intention behind our research is to devise interventions and instruments to improve the activity of designing. Video enables us to do just that. Studying design activity can be considered to span the spectrum from qualitative methods like using narratives to describe an activity to quantitative methods like measuring variables in a controlled experiment. The use of video enables us to start in the qualitative domain and move towards the quantitative domain where performance can be measured and interventions can be designed. Video thus enables researchers to study real-time design activity and orient their research efforts to giving feedback to influence that activity towards better design performance. We are not the first ones to use video to study designing or interactions in general. The WinMe methodology has two overlapping methodological streams as ancestors. The first one is interaction analysis, which was used in social sciences to study humans interacting among themselves and with objects. Though it goes back further in history, the use of video for studying designing was influenced by the human-machine interaction studies of Lucy Suchman in 1987. In 1991, John Tang worked with Suchman and used videos of designers working together to study the role of gestures in design communication. In 1994, video data was used in the Delft Protocols workshop as a common dataset among many research groups to study design activity. These were very well received, and the workshop series is continuing to this day as the Design Thinking Research Symposium series. The second methodological stream that contributes to WinMe is the sequential analysis. It deals with the study of events that happen in a sequence and is much broader in scope than the study of interactions. Our introduction to sequential analysis started with Gottman's work on marital conflict in 1977. Gottman used videos to analyze interactions between marital couples and study the expression of affect. In 1991, Ghosh and Sen wrote the Handbook on Sequential Analysis, and in 1997, Beckman and Gottman wrote a book, Observing Interaction: An Introduction to Sequential Analysis. This book has guided the use of statistical reliability ratings in the WinMe methodology. Thus, the WinMe methodology is a combination of the hypothesis discovery-driven aspect of interaction analysis and the statistically rigorous hypothesis testing part of the sequential analysis method. So what's WinMe? WinMe is video interaction methodology, an approach to using video to study designing as it happens. The researcher starts from an experience he wants to study. He uses videos to record the experience, simulate it in the laboratory, and discover hypotheses. These hypotheses are embedded in a coding scheme. And thereafter, the researcher can record more controlled experiments on video and analyze them to convert his hypotheses into claims. The WinMe methodology thus spans the entire research spectrum from experiencing, investigating that experience, hypothesizing, and converting the hypotheses into claims.
The Luleå Experiment was a week-long workshop on the WinMe framework that was held at the Luleå University of Technology. In total, there were 6 participants in the Luleå Experiment: Philip from Bath, Han and Serap from Grenoble, Matthias from Luleå, and Malte Neers from Stanford, who also acted as facilitators for the week. The workshop started with an exploration of the participants' experience and their passion for their research. This was done in 2 steps. Firstly, the participants were asked to sketch the research process as seen here. Secondly, a Lego exercise was held. Lego was chosen because although it is rigid in its form of building blocks, it is highly flexible since the blocks can easily represent whatever the users want them to represent. The Lego exercise allowed the participants to prototype and share aspects of their research within the group. Both exercises allowed for an increase in the understanding of the research performed by the participants. This was critical for the upcoming research design. The next session was a hypothesis discovery. Here the participants watched a 20-minute long design session to discover something. The question was, what do you see? When the video ended, individual perspectives were shared among the group, and a preliminary coding scheme were devised. The WinMe framework builds on the prototyping culture. Hence, there is a lot of iteration in which the question and coding scheme is refined. The video was coded once using the coding scheme devised by the group. The next step was to design an experiment, testing the hypothesis devised by the group. In this step, the experimental setup, including the design brief, was devised. The actual physical setup of the experiment was also conducted. Here the camera positions, as well as the physical layout and tools, are important for the success of the experiment. We realized that whatever we did influenced the session. The next step was to run the experiment. During the Luleå Experiment, we had 3 groups in total that participated in separate sessions in the Design Observatory. The first group was students from a class that came with their own tasks to solve. The second group was given the task to have a creative session using pen and paper to aid them in their efforts. The third group was given the same task as group 2, but instead of pen and paper, they were given Legos to prototype and communicate their ideas. After the experiment, we were left with a number of videos to analyze. In the Luleå Experiment, we used VCode for analyzing the videos. The software supports both range coding and event coding of video. We realized that it is necessary to iterate the process of coding a number of times. Also, the coding scheme must be rigorous. You must be able to teach the coding scheme to a number of coders. These coders should in turn be able to repeat the same coding of the video. In this way, the coding scheme helps the transition from qualitative interpretation of a situation into repeatable qualitative data.
It's easy to come up with something to study once you have the video, but I think it's necessary to first ask, is that relevant to my interest?
What I really liked was to be able to experience the entire framework in a week, to be able to focus on it and interact with other students. It was very beneficial for me to see where we are going, what the possibilities are, and to discuss about it.
It seems on hindsight, the mistakes we made in designing our task could have been avoided, but I think it was useful to think of the experiment as a prototype and iterate on it, rather than plan a perfect experiment up front.
The feedback session that we have made with the students shows that these kind of research projects may have positive returns on the industry.
I wish we could do it again in a different format, not just doing the methodology, but also using the methodology to get some results and also to write some papers together.